The 1990s were a legendary time for sports bikes. The Japanese Big Four were in an all-out arms race to outsell and outrace each other. Bikes like the GSXR 1100, FZR 1000, and the CBR 900 Fireblade still hold near mythical status among some riders. Japan, meanwhile, was undergoing a massive boom in sports bike sales. Unable to afford the superbikes being made in their own backyards, young Japanese riders took to miniature superbikes, and the legendary CBR250RR was king of the castle. Featuring an inline-4 engine that redlined at an astonishing 20,000 RPM, the 250RR saw a handful of revisions until a receding market, emissions laws, and a crackdown on street racers led to the baby blade being binned in the year 2000.
But enough history. Why are we here today? Well, we're here because in 2017, Honda thought it was high time to revive the CBR250RR name. Not a replacement for the CBR250 they still sell in North America, but the RR is meant to sit alongside it. It's a higher-end model with better specs, a more aggressive look, and a price tag to match.
So without further ado, let's take a look at the 2020 Honda CBR250RR.
Go. Nobody coming behind me. Alright. And away. On the CBR250RR. There we go. That's pretty good. Alright, so as a starting point, I think it's useful to compare the 250RR to the regular CBR250 that Honda refreshed in 2011 and again in 2015 when it got a slight displacement bump. The standard CBR250 made around 24 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque from its single-cylinder engine, and I want to say it was around 360 pounds. If you check online, you will see that the theoretical top speed is 140 kilometers an hour. And when I say theoretical, I really mean it. A buddy of mine, his first bike was a 2012 CBR250, and you would need to be going downhill with a gale force wind at your back to see speeds like that. This RR then supposedly makes around 38 horsepower. At least it did when it launched in 2017. This 2020 model that I'm riding today supposedly makes a little bit more, I think around 40 horsepower and 17 foot-pounds of torque. It's a slightly heavier bike, I want to say around 370 pounds, but the parallel twin is rated for a top speed of 180 kilometers an hour. And I have not taken it up that high today, and I don't really plan to, as I don't want to get kicked out of the country. But let's just say that it does feel pretty peppy for a 250. Anyway, you might have been paying attention there, and yes, you heard me right. This bike has a parallel twin engine. So Honda may have resurrected the 250RR name, but much like Yamaha and their back from the grave R7, they did not bring back the screaming inline-4 engine. Anyway, it's pretty clear that the RR is a pretty decent spec bump over the regular CBR250, at least in terms of power. But the suspension is the other big upgrade on here. So the 250RR features upside-down front forks and a manually adjustable rear shock. So far the suspension feels pretty good to me. You kind of get a good feel as you tip it in here. Obviously this is a rental bike, so I haven't had a chance to set it up for me. If I had to guess, I would say that maybe the shop has set it up for someone much lighter than me. It's actually quite stiff. Riding around town, maybe a little too stiff, but it does feel much better now that we're kind of up here in the mountains. Anyway, moving on. Upside down forks are just the first of many features that you will find on this 250RR that you might not be accustomed to seeing on bikes of this size. The CBR250RR also features a slipper clutch, and you can pay extra for an optional quick shifter. As this is a rental bike, I do not have the quick shifter, so I can't comment on it, but the clutch is super nice. Very lightweight, very easy to manipulate, and it just makes shifting really fun. It feels really fantastic going up and down, which is obviously something you'll be doing a lot of on a bike with an engine this small. So, having said that, I will say the gearing's actually pretty good on here. You can hit 100 in second gear, which is, obviously it's been a while since I've ridden any other 250s, but I don't remember being able to do that on my buddy's old CBR250 or the Ninja 250 that I had back when I was kind of starting out. So, actually pretty tall gearing, but you will still be going kind of up and down through the gears a little more than you would be on a larger bike. So the clutch feels pretty nice. What else have we got on here that you wouldn't normally see on a beginner bike? Calling this a beginner bike doesn't even feel right. It's not. That's not what this is. But anyway, continuing. This bike has throttle by wire, which Honda likes to remind you of. It's written on the side of the bike as well as right beside your throttle hand, which is kind of funny. I don't know why they would put it there. They expect you to forget, what kind of throttle do I have again? And you look down at your hand and, oh, right, throttle by wire. Thanks, Honda. That's appreciated. The throttle by wire feels really nice, though. Kind of catching up to these guys here. That's alright. Yes, the throttle by wire. So, feels really good. Very smooth, not jumpy at all. Yeah, no complaints there. It's a nice little feature to have. It actually feels a little smoother than the throttle by wire did on my XSR 900. From what I've heard, I think a lot of the jumpy throttle that you get on bikes these days comes from trying to quickly cut power in order to meet emissions regulations. So I think that's maybe less of a concern on a bike of this size, so they might have a little more leeway there. But nope, very happy with the throttle. Moving on, this bike, unlike most 250s, also features riding modes. So you've got 3 riding modes here. You've got Sport, Sport Plus, and Comfort, which can be changed from a little switch on the left-hand controls here. The nice thing, too, unlike some other bikes I've had, is that you can change these at any time. You don't have to be stopped. You don't have to be off the power. You can just hit the switch and change it whenever you want. I do find it funny that they didn't give you a standard mode. No, this is a sport bike. This is all sport all the time. You can have sport or more sport, says Honda. Or comfort, I guess, if you've got a passenger on the back. Alright, little left turn here. Start heading up the mountain a bit more. Hopefully these guys aren't too slow ahead of us here. These are the good roads. Oh, thank you. There we go, that's better. Before I rode this bike, I thought the idea of riding modes on a 250 was kind of silly. Like, do we really need the power trimmed back on an engine this small? But there actually was an appreciable difference between them, at least between Sport Plus and Sport. Regular Sport mode and Comfort mode felt about the same, but putting it into Sport Plus mode when I got on the twisty roads actually made the throttle a little bit more reactive, which was really appreciated. The clutch is so light anyway, and the power delivery is, obviously all up top, so this seems like something that wasn't necessarily needed, but I guess it's kind of cool to have it. Also, on the left-hand controls, you will find a lap timer. I think Honda does really kind of intend this to be a bit of a my first track bike, so it's pretty neat to see a dedicated lap timer on here. That's not usually something you see on bikes this small either, so that's pretty neat. This frame is brand new and not adapted from the existing CBR250. It's actually a trellis frame, which you don't often see from Honda. The marketing says the steel trellis was chosen for its balance between strength and flexibility, and it felt pretty good generally. The swing arm is aluminum and is actually asymmetrical to allow this really cool shotgun-style exhaust to hug in a bit tighter to the body. It's all about compactness on bikes like this. Okay, a couple more things to talk about as we get back on the road here. Braking. So the CBR250RR features a single front disc. I believe it is 320 millimeters, and of course another disc in the rear. ABS is standard on this guy. The braking is fine. Obviously the bike's pretty light. The brakes feel really good. I think they have a good feel, and the stopping power is definitely adequate. Part of me, again, just can't help but feel like this is a bit of a downgrade over the original bike from almost 30 years ago, which featured dual front discs. But it's hard to complain, as the bike does stop pretty well with what it's got. Other things I wanted to talk about: comfort. Surprisingly comfortable bike. Obviously, you know, don't delude yourself into thinking you're gonna cross the country on this, but it's got a riding position that I would say is pretty much in between something like a Super Sport 600 and a more standard 250. You can see obviously the clip-ons are below the top triple clamp, but it's still relatively high. The legroom is okay for a bike of this size. I'm obviously on the tall side, but you know, not too cramped. I've been riding for about 200 kilometers today, and I still feel alright, so not too bad. Other than that, I wanted to talk about the mirrors a little bit. They are a little useless. I'm just going to slow down here a bit and give myself some breathing space. Maybe let myself have a little fun here. But yeah, can't see too much out of these guys. You get a lot of shoulder in both of them. They are adjustable to a degree, but even, you know, playing around with them as much as I can't get a really good viewing angle on them, so. Alright, let's see if that's enough space in front of us. Alright. There we go. Alright. This is good. This bike has enough power for roads like these.
As far as looks go, I think this is probably one of the best looking bikes in Honda's entire lineup at the moment. The styling is super sharp, the shotgun exhaust looks really cool, and the color schemes are aggressive. I love the white and red accents on this model, but the black and the HRC tricolor liveries also look really fantastic. The dials are also pretty nice. It's not a big fancy TFT display or anything, but I kind of appreciate that more these days. I like having something bespoke instead of just, here's a big screen, it looks the same as every other big screen on every other bike. So it's a black and white display, but super easy to read in the sun or otherwise, and you get to see that nice and high 14,000 RPM red line. It's got a gear indicator, and much like the kind of unnecessary throttle by wire on the side there, it's got a nice big spot that says 3 riding modes. Once again though, Honda has deemed us filthy gaijin as unworthy of their newest creation, so the 250RR is only available in Japan and Southeast Asia, where small displacement bikes still rule the roost. I've mentioned many times before that Japan requires any motorcycle over 250 cc's to undergo biannual inspection. Because of the tedium and the cost, there's a sizable market for 250cc bikes, just for those who want to avoid all the hassle. In fact, beginner bikes like the Yamaha R3 are sold in both 300cc's as well as Japan-exclusive 250cc variants.
Okay, so a couple more final thoughts here as we are back into town. I want to talk a little bit more about why we don't tend to see these bikes sold abroad. So I want to take a look at the standard CBR250 again. like we talked about earlier. If you want to pick one of those up in Japan, that'll run you about 500,000 yen for a new one. The Double R, on the other hand, goes for a whopping 820,000 yen. Even more than that, Kawasaki's new ZX25R that they debuted last year goes for, I think, 930,000 yen, or about an extra 1,000 USD over the 250RR. Alright, got some more time here. The ZX25R, obviously I think that bike makes a good case for the extra money. It's obviously got 2 more cylinders to its name, but I would like to ride that bike to be able to do a more direct comparison to the 250RR, so please be sure to like and subscribe if you would like to see a review of that bike in the future. Anyway, the 250RR, as I mentioned, costs 821,000 yen, which I believe right now is about 7,200 USD. So, what else can you get in that price bracket? Well, Honda themselves sell the CBR500 for exactly $7,000. Obviously, the RR comes with a lot of trick bits that the 500 doesn't, but I can't help but feel it would be a hard sell across the pond when Americans aren't restricted to small bikes by either age or license requirements. What else? In the UK, I don't know. Honda might have a little more luck over there. I'm not as familiar with their licensing requirements. I believe they're limited to a certain amount of horsepower over there, but who knows? They might have better luck over there. Alright.
So overall, how do I feel about the CBR250RR? I will say I kind of went into this with some expectations. Much like my thoughts on the R7, I was kind of disappointed that Honda didn't carry through the inline 4 from the original 90s CBR250RR, so I was excited, but I was, kind of hedging my expectations before I wrote it. Having said that, I really do like it. The power is really fun. That sounds weird to say about a 250, but from about 7,000 almost all the way up to the red line at 14,000, it's got a really good pull. It's got something that can actually be described as a power band, which is not something you usually get on a lot of the really lethargic 250s and 300s. So it might not be an inline 4, but it still kind of has that feeling, which definitely surprised me. So the CBR250RR then. While I don't think it quite lives up to the hype of the original bike, the new refreshed CBR250RR certainly earns its place in the Japanese market. And while it may not tick all the boxes I'd like it to, I'm at least glad that a new small displacement sport bike is still being developed, especially in a world where existing models are being killed off left and right. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to recommend the 250RR to anyone who has a chance to ride one, but just don't expect to relive all of that 90s glory. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching everyone. Please like and subscribe to help my channel grow, and give me a follow on Instagram for more motorcycle and Japan related content. Ride safe, and I will catch you next time.